r/AskReddit. What is a true fact so baffling, it should be false? There used to be a radioactive energy drink called Raditha that was in the US market for a decade from 1918 to 1928. Some of the more prominent users had to be buried in lead coffins. The youngest mother to give birth became pregnant at 4 years old. She's still alive and resides in Lima, Peru apparently. Lena Medina had a rare condition whereby her body went through puberty very early, making it possible for her to conceive a child. Her son was born via caesarean section when she was 5 years and 7 months old, and was raised as her younger brother. The father was never fully confirmed, though suspicion fell on male family members. The girl herself obviously had no clear recollection. To give birth. That qualification implies something so much worse. Giant squids have a donut-shaped brain so their esophagus can run through the middle. If they try to swallow too large a bite of food they can get brain damage. You can boil water in a paper cup over an open flame. I thought witchcraft was outlawed. My dad showed me this when I was 4. Blew my mind. There are far more tigers in private collections in Texas than there are in the rest of the world, wild or otherwise. Ireland was a net exporter of food during the Great Potato Famine. That's what caused the famine. The Brits exported all the food and the Irish were left with only one small kind of potato for themselves, which then was afflicted with disease. Giraffes eat bones. When I was in Africa we were legit surrounded by a family of 12 giraffes. Then one bent over and picked up a gazelle carcass. Looked dead into our eyes as it ate its leg. It was so ducking creepy. A morbidly obese person can survive with absolute starvation without any sickness or feeling ill, under close control. There have been studies since 60s. There is a patient in 1973 who went under a 382-day starvation diet for therapeutic purposes under close control with only vitamin and mineral supplements and water intake without protein, carbohydrate or fat intake, no food at all. Dropped from 207 kilograms to 88 kilograms and maintained it. After a follow-up checkup 5 years later, the patient was 96 kilograms. Stabilized. Prolonged fasting had no ill effects. If anybody is curious about the article, the pub ID is PMC 2,495,396. Edit. Fixed autocorrect. Keep in mind for anyone tempted to imitate. Multiple others attempted this after him and wound up dead. Do not try this at home. It requires very strict supervision. From what I remember, a lot of deaths are from when they start eating again. You have to start back extremely slowly. More people died making the V2 rockets during World War II than were killed by them. Another fun fact about V2 rockets. Germany was facing a large issue with rocket fuel shortages during the project because people kept drinking it. The fuel was made from 70% ethyl alcohol and 30% water, distilled from potatoes. It was the most economically viable fuel at the time, since they were already very low on other fuels. To stop workers from drinking it, they denatured the alcohol, essentially poisoning it, but people kept drinking it anyways and getting extremely ill. This simply caused people to start leaving the V2 program, suggesting that they were only in it for the free alcohol. This also means that any alcohol over 70% ABV is stronger than actual World War II rocket fuel. People were deliberately infected with malaria to cure their syphilis. And the man who developed this treatment, Julius Wagner Jauregg, received the Nobel Prize for it. The extremely high fevers of the malaria infections killed the syphilis bacteria. Then the patients were cured of the malaria using quinine. Quinine is the reason tonic water glows under black light. Till tonic water glows under black light. TASER is actually an acronym for Thomas A. Swift's electric rifle. TASER. Switzerland has accidentally invaded Liechtenstein thrice in the last 50 years. On the first time in 1976, Swiss military got lost and ended up in Liechtenstein. So the Liechtensteiners offered them drinks like proper hosts. On the second time in 1992, Swiss military forgot that a certain observation post was actually not in Swiss territory but in Liechtenstein territory. So they just said sorry and forgot about it. Then again in 2007. The Swiss army got lost and entered Liechtenstein, but eventually realized they weren't in Switzerland anymore. Toto. So they turned back. Liechtenstein didn't even know this happened till the Swiss apologized, again. To which they basically said, no problem. Bro. Takeaways. The Swiss army are bad with directions. The Liechtenstein people are chill brothers. Army. According to Wikipedia, Liechtenstein doesn't have a military. It has a police force that consists of 87 field officers and 38 civilian staff, totaling 125 employees. TSA's fail rate is over 80%. I personally know someone who in his carry-on accidentally packed a loaded handgun, made it on the plane, and was so freaked out when he landed, he UPS'd it back home and took a Greyhound bus after his trip. I know a dumbass that flew internationally with a handgun in his checked luggage, on accident, but still a dumbass hole. He left out of Florida heading for South Korea with a layover in Japan. The Japanese found it and he was arrested and spent over 2 weeks in jail. They let him go. A total friend of mine did the same with a folding knife. A million seconds ago was week before last. The 24th of July. A billion seconds ago was 1987. 1988. Ed. Made some rounding errors. We're looking at November. The life of Frane Seluk. The luckiest and lucky man in the world. January 1962. Frane is riding on a train through a freezing canyon when it fell into an icy river. All 17 other passengers died while he escapes with a broken arm and hypothermia. 1963. On his first plane trip he was sucked out of the plane's door and landed in a haystack, unscathed. 19 other people were killed in the crash. 1966. He was riding in a bus when it skidded off the road into yet another icy river. 4 passengers drowned while he only received some minor cuts and bruises. 1970. His car's engine burst into flames while he was driving, but he managed to escape before it exploded. 1973. In yet another driving incident, his car's engine was doused with hot oil from a broken fuel pump. This caused flames to shoot through the air vents, singing off all of his hair. He was otherwise unharmed. 1995. He was hit by a bus but only sustained minor injuries. 1996. To escape a head-on collision with a United Nations truck on a mountain curve, he swerved into a guardrail that broke on impact. To save himself, he jumped out of his car's open door and grabbed onto a tree branch as he watched his car plummet off the cliff. Suffice to say, the guy had a complicated relationship with the Grim Reaper. Edit. Got his name wrong. Edit 2. Got the first edit wrong. Turns out I was right the first time. He also won the lottery, I think. Yup. In 2003. He won $1.10 mil in US dollars. In 2010 he gave the rest of his money to friends and family as he wanted to live a more frugal life. Mike the Headless Chicken lived without a head for 18 months. BBC.com link. I live in the town next to where this took place. They now have a festival every year remembering Mike. Mike the Headless Chicken link. My friends and I were pretty obsessed with Mike in 9th grade. The website used to have a really catchy theme song and now it's stuck in my head again. The USA is the 3rd most populated nation on Earth. If you were able to add 1 billion people to the US population today, it would still be the 3rd most populated nation on Earth. An eyewitness to Lincoln's assassination at Ford's Theater told his story on national television. Edit. Based on suggestions below, I'm proposing a new version of this factoid which makes it sound even crazier, but still factually true. An eyewitness to Lincoln's assassination at Ford's Theater appeared as a contestant on a nationally televised game show with Lucille Ball. Link? Yowta be link. Sharks evolved before trees did. Trees evolved before the bugs responsible for rotting, that is, bacteria which could eat lignin and cellulose, did. Thus when they died, they just fell over in place and lay there instead of rotting. Over time the weight of the upper layers of tree corpses compacted the lower levels, which eventually became the coal we dig up and use today. The coolest thing about this is that since there were so many trees just blanketing the continents of the earth, and that they were basically sitting on top of coal, that whenever something, say, a lightning strike, hit a dead pile of wood, it could spark a forest fire that would rage across large swaths of whole continents. And they would last for years. Think about how ducking insane that would look from space. Or the top of a mountain. Just nothing but fire for as far as you can see in all directions. The color orange is named after the fruit. Before, the color orange was called red. This is why people with orange hair are called redheads. Greenland extends east of, west of, south of and north of Iceland. Only 4 people have been to the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the ocean. One of those people is James Cameron, the director of Titanic. Didn't he make the movie Titanic as an excuse to visit the actual wreck? President John Tyler, born in 1790, has 2 living grandsons. A similar one I like is that there is a living person who is the daughter of a US Civil War veteran, at least as of 2017. And she gets to draw a Civil War veteran's pension. If you're launching from Earth, the most difficult place to reach in the solar system is the sun. The reason for this is that to fly directly into the sun you need to first launch from Earth, and then remove all of your orbital velocity around the sun. Anything less will just put you into a different orbit around the sun rather than directly into it. The amount of power required for that to do it directly is basically impossible currently. As an alternative you could, for relatively little power, fly all the way out to Pluto distance, slow down much less, and then fall back into the sun. The trade-off being the travel time is now about 90 years. There are other in-between paths that could get you there for different balances of energy and time, but all of them are tougher than getting basically anywhere else in the solar system with an equivalent balance. There's a mission currently traveling to study the sun. The Parker Solar Probe. It won't be flying directly in, but plans to make the closest passes than any probe ever has. It's going to make 7 passes by Venus to shed speed so it can get closer and closer to the sun. The full flight time is planned as just less than 7 years. As of this post they are 1 week shy of a year in. Tell that to all the Kerbins I've melted in KSP. Cheetahs can't roar, but they can meow like house cats. Whoa, is this legit? Googling now. Edit. This has been the cutest part of my day. Cute, then scary. Yowta link. There is an extremely rare condition called Stone Man syndrome. It causes any smallest damage done to tissue to regrow into a bone. Speaking briefly, people affected by this sickness slowly turn into living statues as they get older. Thanks for watching and be sure to subscribe to RedditQueen for the best daily content.